If you've ever played a fantasy video game, like Elder Scrolls Online, or watched a horror movie, or really been involved in anything in the fantasy genre, you've probably encountered necromancy. The concept of bringing the dead back to life. And I think it's interesting how in all of these stories, there's never been a time when a story of bringing the dead back to life actually had a happy ending. At least, not that I know of. There's no stories of it proven to be a good idea to bring the dead back to life. And sometimes in our lives, we start to think maybe we would like to bring the dead back to life. Maybe it's a old relationship that was toxic, and we think, well, I wonder if maybe somehow I could go back and resurrect it, and it could be different this time. Or we think to ourselves, maybe something that never bore good fruit in life, something we've always tried to make it work and it's never worked, or someone who's always betrayed us on some level. We think, well, perhaps if I tried something that never worked, despite all the trying in the world, never worked, but perhaps if I just gave it one more go and hope that it would be different this time, maybe then it would be better. You see, we want to believe that everything in our life is part of some sort of a grander scheme, that it all is part of a destiny greater than ourselves. And when we believe that notion that we're all playing an important part in some sort of a cosmic drama, then it's very difficult for us to come to terms with the concept that something just isn't meant to be, because we want to believe that everything happens for a reason. We want to believe that life is miraculous. And maybe there is some sort of a great story overarching everything. Maybe there is some sort of a grand design or a destiny that guides us. I like to believe that there is. But I also have come to the realization that when your rational mind tells you something, you owe it to yourself to listen, even if that's not what your heart wants to hear. Because sometimes we just have to face the truth that something, no matter how much it meant to us in the past, isn't part of our present. And it's not meant to be. When you go out and you try to bring to life things which died a long time ago, it tends to have a necromancy effect. Even if you succeed in bringing back the dead, they're not the same. Because you can go back to places where you've been, but you can't go back to a different time. And even if you can be changed for the better as a result of your past experiences, even if you can take something positive away from it, you can't ever truly go back. There's a scene in Baldur's Gate 3 where there's this girl and she's under the spell of a witch, and the witch promises to bring her dead husband back to life. And if you liberate this girl from the subjugation of the witch, she'll hate you for it. Because she thinks that by selling her soul to the witch, she'll have the opportunity to bring the dead back to life. And sometimes we cling desperately to the illusion of false hope. And we'd rather have that illusion than the inconvenient reality. That's a dangerous place to be, when you'd rather have a lie that's comforting than a truth which might begin to empower you to actually heal and move forward. As the story went, the girl was there by the coffin of her dead husband, and you, being the hero of the story, found this magic wand which would enable you to bring him back from the dead. And if you chose to bring him back from the dead, it would indeed work. He would come back from the dead, but he'd come back as a zombie, the rotting corpse reanimated. And the end state would be worse than the beginning, because instead of having lost her husband once, she ultimately hated her liberator, and she hated what her reanimated dead husband had become. She hated having lost him twice, lost him once to death, and then lost him a second time to having to watch him be killed again as a zombie. Now, isn't that hard? Imagine that. You think you lose your loved one, and then he's brought back to life, and then it turns out he's just a zombie who wants to kill you, and so he has to be killed a second time. The agony, the anguish, the frustration, all of it. You see, sometimes it's better to let go of things than it is to keep on hanging on, to keep on revisiting those old wounds. It's a hard thing to come to terms with. So what do? I don't think that this is a conflict which is unique to me or something that is rare at all. I think we all encounter this sort of feeling. And I think one of the best things you can do is to fall back on a sense of basic routines, a sense of things that you can count on, things which are tried and true. Maybe not extremely glamorous things, but things you can add to your life that give you a sense of ballast in the storm. Because sometimes you can't count on other people, but you can at least count on yourself. So go out there and do your dishes, clean your floor, read a chapter out of a good book, get some exercise. Just pick a few things that you can do in this moment, and then do them and enjoy them. Be present in those moments. And be open to the possibility that life is a thing which has many paths. It's not so much a thing where if you miss one, there aren't any more to be found. You see, death is a terrible, frightening thing if you believe that death is the end of all life. But if you believe that death is just one gateway from one form of life to another, sort of like how mushrooms grow up in the rotted stumps, and the rotted dead tree becomes the fertile birthplace of life for a different kind of life, and then other ecosystems develop from that. Did the tree really die, or did it just transform into something else? Life is filled with opportunities for us perhaps to transform from one time of our life into another, or from one mentality into another state of mind, from one relationship into another. We have a lot of opportunities to embrace the multitude of different paths which can lead us through different stages of our life's journey. But we can't experience those things until we let go of that temptation to try to resurrect the dead. Whatever it is, whether it's a person or whether it's your past, whether it's all of those things you wish you would have done when you were younger, or things that you feel like perhaps you missed out on. Let go of them. Because the best place to live is in the moment. And no good has ever come from reanimating things that are meant to be laid to rest. Always try to find a sense of peace in your life, and always understand that even if you don't feel a sense of peace, it's still possible to know intellectually that you by right ought to be at peace. And sometimes if you tell yourself that enough, you do start to believe it, and it gets a little bit easier to move on every day. I also think sometimes it's very difficult to come up with great ideas. It's hard to come up with new sources of inspiration. Sometimes you can feel like you're caught up in the feedback loop of samey thoughts inside your head. And to that, I'd say it's always good to open your mind to new stories, new adventures, books, movies, television shows, whatever it might be. Things that help you to jumpstart your imagination when you start to feel like you're losing it. Because when you're thinking about new, interesting ideas, then you're less likely to be gloomy and to be brooding and continuing to think about all of the tired old things that you probably shouldn't be thinking about so much anymore. As someone once said, life has loveliness, so buy it and never count the cost. Good luck on your adventure. Till next time, as always, thank you for watching.